Conflict in marriage and different relationships is almost expected, but many people fear it. And I want us to be able to share about conflict, how it should be handled, how we have handled conflict, the mistakes that we have made, that we have noticed. And yeah, let's set ourselves up for better, healthier conflict. Let's get into it.
Now, if you're new here, wow, you're in such a wonderful place and we want you to stay. So the only way you can do that is subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates, because every week there's a video.
Yep.
And you don't want to miss it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like for us, conflict started even before we got married, especially during the wedding preparation. At the time, I did not know how to handle conflict very well. I can be quite emotional. When I'm upset, I will cry. So, not anymore. But I feel like that's where, not anymore, babe. I'm much better. Trust me, I'm much better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm the one who cries sometimes.
Yeah, so you know how, you don't cry, babe. You know how, now we fear conflict because we feel like conflict is bad. Conflict is negative, but I feel like conflict allows for us to really learn one another, to learn yourself, but also learn your person. You're able to have difficult conversations. I love to have difficult conversations. I don't run away from them. And I feel like conflict, especially once handled well, is very healthy and will be good for your marriage.
Yeah.
So how do we handle conflict now? What does God say about us handling conflict, how we handle conflict?
So we have a small group of friends. It's a fellowship of men, and we've been studying. And all of us got some spanking in a way. And I remember when I got home.
While reading the book.
Yeah, while doing that.
Someone may think it's actual spanking.
No, while reading the book, and we were just, when I got home, I asked myself, okay, so should I share with my wife what I just learned, and then she'll be, I told you so, or she'll take advantage of me, or should I just do my part? And I've learned to actually just do as Christ commands me, because as a husband I have such a high calling. Okay, I think we might go so much deep into that direction and miss the point, but in summary, my position as your husband is like Christ to me. Yeah, it doesn't remove Christ from you, but it's like Christ to me, or the church. Similar, yeah. And so I need to live. One of the scriptures tells us in 1 Peter 3:5, I think it talks about husbands live with their wives in an understanding way as fellow heirs of this goodness of Christ. Yeah. And the most important thing is so that your prayers will not be hindered. Yeah. So that was the first difficult thing I had to deal with.
You're there hindering your prayers because
it's like, if I don't live within an understanding way, then it's like even me, like my prayers will not reach where I want them to reach. And that statement, live with your wives in an understanding way, is very, very detailed. Yeah, because there are so many things that fall in that category. For example, if your wife does not keep time, you have to be understanding. If your wife maybe has a challenge with maybe giving birth, you have to live with her in an understanding way.
Yeah.
If she's struggling with an addiction in a way, maybe it could be, we may think it's these crazy addictions, but it could be an addiction to
social media,
junk food, or stuff like that, chocolate or things like that. Then you have to live with her in an understanding way. Not that you don't do anything about it or you don't communicate it, but you have to understand. You live with her in an understanding way. What does that mean? You need to exercise patience. You need to exercise humility. Yeah, in summary,
Yeah.
that was a real spanking for us.
Yeah, and I feel like also conflict should even cut across to other relationships.
Yes.
Be it your friendships, your siblings, at work. How we handle conflict is very important, because sometimes someone at work might upset you and you're the one shouting at people, or you decide not to show up at work. But also, the Bible tells us, live at peace as far as it depends
Yes.
on you. So what part have you played to contribute to that conflict? Because many times we think that it's just someone else's fault, but you've not taken the time to actually see how you contribute to that conflict. And I feel like we also need to stress that communication is very important.
Yeah.
And communication is two-way.
Two-way.
Communication is listening and also speaking back.
Yeah.
And the moment that conflict occurs and respect is out of the picture,
Yes.
you are already handling conflict wrongly. If you're shouting, there are people who shove, there are people who slap, hit, throw things. Respect is already out of the chat. That conflict is not going to help that relationship. So always ask yourself, how do I react when I'm angry? How do I respond when someone has made me mad? Yeah. And also, what does God say about conflict? It's the story of Joseph and his brothers. There was a lot of conflict there. And years later, when his brothers found him in Egypt and Joseph was now a big guy, Joseph did not, he could have just thrown them in jail and kept them there and maybe even executed them and refused to give them the food that they had come for. But Joseph embraced them. Okay, he sent for the younger brother, he kept one of them, but he welcomed them, and he did not even, he's not the one who pointed out and said, you guys sold me. It was the brothers who said, we are sorry for selling you. Like,
Yeah.
they're the ones who came and apologized for that. He did not rub
Yes.
it in their faces. And even when Pharaoh's wife tried to seduce him and he ran away, that was a moment of conflict. Not once did you hear Joseph telling God, but God, why would you let me go through all these things? For him, maintaining his freedom was not that important, was not more important than his reverence for God. Because he could have slept with Potiphar's wife and become free and not be a slave anymore. But for him, that was not important. What was important was his relationship with God. So even in the moments of such conflict, being blamed for something you haven't done, and you're experiencing these consequences for something you haven't done, is your reverence for God taking precedence over you being right? Can you stand people not knowing that you are right, all for the glory of God, just for the reverence of God, for you to live at peace? Because I feel like this conflict escalates when we really want to prove our point. You want everyone to know that you were the one who was right. You want everyone to know that you were not in the wrong. And it just escalates, and we're not living at peace. And this is also in marriage. You want to stress the point. You want to have the last word. But to what end? Does it benefit the marriage?
Another thing that we know, First Peter 5:8, which says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." So we have to know that when there's conflict, it's an opportunity for us to be more like Christ. Or for me, I honestly consider marriage as an opportunity for somebody to be purified in a way. Yes, because you'll never marry a perfect woman, you'll never marry a perfect man.
And you're not perfect.
And if you go into marriage and you say, I miss that perfect boyfriend I had, I miss that perfect girlfriend I had, then you are not ready. Or you need to change your mindset. So the real essence of us getting married is actually for us to get closer to God.
Yeah.
Or be like Him.
Yeah.
Whether it is you, the wife, or me, the husband. Now, I remember listening to a gentleman, I think it's called Morris, yeah. And he was talking about how David was tempted to sleep with Bathsheba. Yeah. Now, this is a guy whose heart was after God, and by the time he slept with Bathsheba, he had already written some psalms already, right? And so he was trying to talk about how crafty the devil is now. What we just read, how crafty he is. So what happened was that day he didn't go to battle with the other guys. He was on a chill. Then Bathsheba, in that time, the women didn't have these like sanitary towels and what. So in those days, everybody was sort of secluded, yeah,
during that period.
So during that time, and then at the end of that period, they go to like the top of a roof and just wash, yeah. And so now that's when David sees this woman, and then he asks her to come, her to be brought to his palace. But then according to the laws of the Old Testament, you're not supposed to do anything with a woman until 7 days after
Her period.
exactly 7 days after the end.
So after the last day of her period, 7 days.
A week. So he had a week.
To really think about his decision.
Now that's how crafty the devil can be.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you find that you really want to abuse this woman or man because he's irresponsible, he doesn't care for you, he no longer even wants to text you the way he used to when he was like pursuing you.
Yeah.
And now for you, that has become such a big issue that you hate him, you resent him, you don't want to talk to him, you undermine him or her because now, and yet for him on the other hand, he's like, man, I need to, like, for this year or this month, I'm going to work so hard. I'm not going to be on social media, I'm going to work so hard to make sure my family is
catered for.
while at home, my husband never thinks about me, this and that and that.
We
so
are
now,
both seeing life in
think
different
differently.
perspectives.
So now, by the time you come together to now talk,
you have made your own conclusions. You're not even willing to listen
so
to
now
someone.
I'm here, I'm coming to tell you how my day was. I'm saying, you know what, they gave us maybe these accounts and we were supposed to do the balancing and things were not balancing. I was in traffic, then the car overheated or what, I'm talking about cars. And so, now, and then for you in your mind, you don't even want to hear it. Why?
Yeah, you've already made your own conclusion.
You're thinking, he doesn't text me, he doesn't check on me, he doesn't what. Eventually, human beings have conscience. That's what God gave us. That's that right. Gift. We have conscience. So eventually, your husband or wife will eventually notice that this person is not interested in my
jazz.
What happens? Now the next time when maybe you have to take the child to hospital because they're maybe having a temperature, then it's like now there's this huge conflict of why you're not getting out of the house and yet the child is unwell. We need to rush to the hospital, but you're delaying to get out of the hospital, and yet maybe you're packing a bottle for him. So all these things are just crafted by
the devil, and the devil will take advantage. Yeah, so I want you, after watching this video, I want you to really sit down and do a maintenance check on your marriage. First individually, and then get together and talk about it. Like really go down and, because sometimes you'll find that maybe you guys are even not having any conflict anymore per se, because there's this one conflict that is looming over you that you have both just accepted, and you're now just living in limbo. You're just now partners. This is what the home needs, this is what the kids, like you're not relating anymore as a couple because of the conflict. And like I said earlier, once disrespect is in the chat, once you're not communicating, and for you to communicate well, for you to be able to listen and hear someone, remove all conclusions, all preconceived conclusions from your mind, and just be open-minded to hear someone's heart. Because we are two individuals trying to become brought together by one perfect God, two imperfect individuals brought together by one perfect God. So that means we come with a lot of imperfections. So be willing to listen to someone's heart, and then also you share your heart as openly as possible, and then find middle ground. Be willing to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, so that your marriage can actually thrive. And this also cuts across to other relationships. All this just flows down. Even friendships, you find that people have lost friendships because you're not willing to listen, you're not willing to unlearn, you're not willing to extend grace. I was talking to someone yesterday and they said, her husband feels like when you say extending grace, it's like covering something up with a blanket and just excusing people's behavior. But when you say extend grace, doesn't mean we're not going to have a conversation about this. Doesn't mean we're not going to set like maybe guidelines on how we can improve. Yeah. So just because I've extending grace is I'm not going to crucify you for something that you have done. But okay, now this is what you have done. Where is it stemming from? What is the cause of it? What can we do to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
I remember when we were starting to try to intentionally have date nights weekly, it felt like a bit too frequent before we started. But I kind of look forward to it because I know that that is probably the best time
For us to talk.
you listen and process like what we're saying, and we sort of discuss knowing, okay, this is a safe space, and I had this issue, I had this issue, I had this issue, and because of the environment it's easier to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to do better, even if tomorrow.
They repeat. Yeah, but at least the conversation is being heard. Someone knows what's going on. Yeah. Look at conflict as an opportunity for you to become better. Remember, we are two imperfect people brought together by a perfect God. Look at conflict as something that is going to iron out all these things, show you bare and naked, and now you can start to fix the imperfections that exist, and your marriages and relationships will be better for it. For me, sometimes Mark is like, babe, we're having an argument. I'm like, an argument? When? Because for me, it's just a conversation that where we both have different opinions and we're now trying to understand one another. For me, I wouldn't even notice it because I feel like we've gotten to that point where we can handle conflicts so much better. Not that we are perfect, we are also still on a journey, but we handle it so much better.
Yeah. Or you may find that there's one who
Just
allows.
Yeah. And there has to be that, I feel, in a healthy way, because now there are some people who are going to constantly be the ones dying. But also, I guess that's what God calls us to do, because He constantly dies for our sake.
Yeah. We have to tread lightly on that point because there are people who
We'll take advantage of it.
Yeah, they take advantage of it, and there are people who have grown up in such an environment where they see their mothers having no say, yeah? Or their fathers having no say. If the man has said, we're going to the village tomorrow,
That's it.
whether she has to work tomorrow or not, they have to go.
Figure it out.
Or if the mom says go to the market and buy us this, he has no say, he just goes. We have to tread lightly.
I think that's why I keep emphasizing a healthy marriage, where you can communicate. If maybe you don't want to go to the market, it's a safe space where you can tell your husband, no, I'm not able to.
I want to say this point, and correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like a lot of conflict has come from these two words: love your wife, submit to your husband. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that submission is a journey, and also loving your wife is a journey. We have that mentality of, if my wife doesn't submit to me,
I'm not going to love.
I'm not going to love her. And yet...
And the other way around, especially the other way around. he doesn't love me, I don't feel love, can't submit.
Yeah, and yet it's a whole, it's so dynamic. This whole love and submit is so dynamic in a way that everything else falls under this whole love and submission.
Yes.
Because if my wife is to submit to me, like everything I tell her to do, she does, then I will love her and do everything for her. What if she's doing it out of just
for the sake,
yes,
the posture of your heart while you're doing all these things?
yes,
Yeah, we learned, I think like 2 weeks ago, that there's a difference between being submissive and being subservient. And I think that's a video for another day. Yeah, so just to question, like, what's the posture of your heart while you are submitting? What's the posture of your heart while you are loving? Because sometimes you will love so that someone does something for you, or you will submit so that your husband can do something for you. Yet we are supposed to love in spite of the other person's actions, and to submit in spite of the other person's actions. But I also want to just put a disclaimer that the marriages that we speak of are godly marriages. Marriages where God is at the center. Because for the other marriages, some of these things will sound like absolute rubbish. Yeah.
conflict is like a gym. You need it. Imagine having a life where you never walk, you just sit at your desk,
You
you
don't
sit in a
exercise
car,
at all.
everything is done, food is delivered to you, everything. You eventually realize that you are not
Healthy or
healthy.
productive.
Yeah. And you have to, if you have that mindset also in your marriage, then you might find that whenever you deal with a conflict, it's such an achievement for you, because either you're closer to each other and also closer to God. Because it's always a refinement.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And conflict, I mean, even us, like almost every day, I think we have like some kind of tension. But I think eventually you grow to realize how to deal with it. Initially, the first time you get to the gym, the maximum,
Everything is hard.
everything is hard. If it's aerobics, the first 5 minutes you ask yourself,
Who
why?
sent me?
Who sent me? And yet you paid the money, you did all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when your trainer gives you some weights, and you ask yourself, which people carry these weights? But you consistently do this for, say, 3 weeks, you find that you're even now starting to compete against the trainer, right? And so is conflict. Conflict has to be dealt with in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Yeah. How? You're going to communicate, you're going to
Be respectful.
be
So
respectful.
that means no hitting, no throwing things, no calling, no name calling.
And you must agree between the two of you that it's a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to have a conflict, and then I hear my sister-in-law or my brother-in-law or your auntie calling me, saying, Mark, my daughter or my sister or something like that.
Unless you have,
Yeah.
for such cases, because sometimes
Yeah.
you'll need like a third party, an independent third party to just weigh in on whatever issues you have. I feel like that third party should be agreed upon together.
And
It should be a
preferably
safe space.
discussed, together.
Yeah. And if that third party is not family, that's even better, because family, say if it's my family, they love me. Like they've loved me for more years than they have loved you. Because they've loved you for now 7, going on 8.
They
have
trust,
loved me for
they will
longer.
trust you more, like they will trust
They
what
might
you
also
say.
trust you, but they know me longer. They love me longer than they have loved you. So for you guys will get over your conflict, but you find that your mother now just looks at your husband and suddenly like, oh, this guy.
He's beating my daughter, for example.
My God.
Yeah.
Beating is a whole other thing. By the time you start beating someone, that means you don't respect them. And someone that you love, you're not going to do that to them. So that means there are some fundamental principles that have already exited that relationship. Yeah, I hope we have been able to share some light on healthy conflict and the red flags for unhealthy conflict and what the foundation should be. So if you are dating, these are things that you should look out for,
And
because you will
discuss.
see, yeah, you will see these red flags while you are dating. Don't think that they're going to change once you are married, unless someone is actively working on them. Maybe they are seeking therapy, seeking counsel and what. But these are red flags that will remain red. You cannot wash a red flag and it turns to another color. Yeah, so look out for those flags. If you're already married, now take some time to do a maintenance check of your marriage regarding conflict. How have we handled conflict from the start? How was conflict while we're dating? How was conflict? How are we handling conflict now? Are we still respectful? Are we communicating? Is it still a loving relationship? Is it still a loving environment while we are having conflict?
And is there like an unresolved?
Is there unresolved conflict that you have been holding on to? Because that unresolved conflict brings about resentment.
Yeah. He
And
has
then
done this, okay.
you keep it. Then one day maybe you might erupt and it's so bad and you're throwing things and you're shouting, you're packing your bags. Or even maybe you're now married 25 years. All that conflict has now piled up. You've had it up to here. Irreconcilable differences. Yeah, so don't sweep things under the carpet. Talk about them. Remember that conflict is healthy. It is how we handle it, how we handle conflict when it comes, that either makes it bad or good.
Yeah.
Any parting shots?
No.
We'll see you next Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, share it, let people learn. Just share. Put it on your WhatsApp status, put it on your Instagram stories. Just keep sharing so that we can impact even more families. And when you like, when you share, YouTube suggests these videos to more people so we're able to help more marriages, more relationships, and more families.